Hi, I'm Mary.
I'm Namita Sugandhi from Hartwick College, and we're here to present another episode on the history of chai for our video blog series from Archaeology Now.
And we're here to talk about the history of chai.
Oh, I love chai. I can't imagine starting my day without it. It's such a quintessential part of Indian life.
Well, the earliest chai in India was nothing like the chai we drink today. In fact, it didn't even have tea in it at first.
That's right. The origins of chai go back thousands of years and are shrouded in myth and legend. Many of the ingredients found in chai are used in Ayurvedic medicines that are based on ancient Indian traditions. Early Ayurvedic teas were known as kadhas and were used along with other herbs and spices to balance the doshas or the energies of the body.
While we might not have clear evidence of chai in the archaeological record, we do have many different legends connecting the drinking of chai to ancient Indian and Southeast Asian kings.
Some people say the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka introduced chai or kadha drinking into the culture of his court, or as part of a ritual of signing peace treaties. Other legends suggest the great king Harshavardhana created chai to stay awake during his meetings in court. Other stories tell us that chai was the invention of a Buddhist monk who visited China and then brought back the tradition of chewing on wild tea leaves.
Many of the traditional Ayurvedic recipes that are talked about in legends are still used in India today. For example, jaljeera is made of cumin, black salt, and is still used to aid digestion. Haldi doodh is a popular beverage made with turmeric milk and other spices, used to prevent and cure several diseases. Ayurveda uses spices like ginger and black pepper to aid in digestion, cardamom to elevate mood, cloves for pain relief, and cinnamon to stimulate circulation.
Archaeologically, we have evidence for spices being used in South Asia as far back as 5,000 years ago during the Bronze Age. Archaeologists have found evidence that ginger was eaten not just by the people of the Indus civilization, but also by their neighbors and their cows. We can even see from microscopic starch grains that have been preserved in terracotta pots that this ginger was roasted before it was boiled with other things like turmeric, salt, sugar, and other sweeteners.
In the ancient world, Indian spices such as pepper were traded far and wide. The first known peppercorns were found inside the nose of Ramses II, who lived from 1303 BCE to 1213. He was the longest ruling pharaoh of Egypt and one of the most prolific in building and fathering probably over 100 children. Archaeologists have also found evidence of Indonesian cloves at the Mesopotamian site of Turka or Tel Ashara in Syria. Many speculate that these spices probably arrived in Mesopotamia via Indian traders.
Cloves, nutmeg, and mace all come from the same species of tree, and until a few hundred years ago they were only grown on a few islands in eastern Indonesia. We have evidence that the people there were using those spices from the very earliest of times.
Very cool. As we can see, the trade between ancient India and the rest of the world goes back pretty far.
Yes, it does. In fact, the Indian subcontinent has always been connected through vast overland and maritime routes that extended from Papua New Guinea to East Africa and the Mediterranean world. These probably started before the Bronze Age and continued and intensified as time went on. In fact, during the time of the Roman Empire, special ports were built to facilitate the trade in pepper, or black gold as they called it. Pepper, ginger, and cardamom were all grown in the forests of the Western Ghats. Cinnamon from Sri Lanka appears in the Mediterranean world very early and is also referenced in ancient Greek writings and in early biblical stories.
But profits and taxes paid by the rising merchant class in the South Indian economy helped to fund some of the great monuments and urbanism, including famous World Heritage Sites, such as the Buddhist caves of Ajanta, which were carved somewhere in the 2nd century BCE to about 480 AD. There are about 30 rock-carved caves with some of the finest Buddhist art in the world, worship halls, and monasteries. Slightly later, in the 1st millennium AD, we have nearly 100 caves nearby at the site of Ellora, carved by Jain, Buddhist, and Hindu worshippers. This reminds us of how networks of trade often intersect with networks of pilgrimage and faith.
It was often through these trade networks that new religious ideologies and practices were also spread. We can think about the expansion of Buddhism into Southeast and East Asia, and also the introduction of Islam into Southeast Asia, all part of these larger networks.
In medieval times, spices such as pepper, ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, nutmeg, mace, and cloves were extremely valuable and desirable. We can see their legacy in the spiced holiday foods of Europe. Eventually, as these spices became slightly more available, the elites focused on a high cuisine that enhanced flavors rather than using spices, which were being more readily available to those of lower classes. Still, the desire for spices helped fuel the European age of exploration and colonialism across the globe. Perhaps there is no better example than in Indonesia, where the Dutch DVOC created a monopoly on cloves, nutmeg, and mace. They nearly killed the entire population of the Banda Islands, keeping only a few individuals to work as slaves on nutmeg and mace plantations.
We'll have more to say about colonialism in future episodes, but we can also think about how this medieval trade in spices helped to contribute to the formation of the middle-class merchants and also contribute to the demise of feudalism. As we can see, the spices we find in chai have a very long history and have been significant agents of change throughout human history.
As we can see, chai in its original form may have looked very different than the chai we all know and love today.
Yes, and with that we can also start thinking about milk-based drinks and the dairy that goes into chai in addition to these spices.
Absolutely. We'll visit that in our next episode, where we'll talk about dairy, another important ingredient often found in chai.
Sounds like a plan. Join us next time, and be sure to check out other original videos from Archaeology Now. See you later!